Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? The Glasgow Celtic have went out into Hampden again and brought home another victory, brought home another trophy to take Celtic now on to 119 honours, which is something that we keep saying we're not going to talk about, but we're certainly enjoying rubbing their noses in it. And the first leg of what should be a treble this year, this was Celtic's ambition coming into this year to go one better than last season's double and deliver a Brendan Rodgers special, which is, of course, the treble. Leg one done, job one done. And in the video today, we're going to be breaking down the match that we've seen, the major talking points, the sliding doors moments, because this match could have really went either way. Brendan said in his post-match interviews that he wasn't really surprised by the approach the Rangers took, but I think I speak for a lot of Celtic fans in saying that, you know, their application in this match was quite surprising. They were actually very close to, getting something out of this match in some of the moments, and they showed a lot of heart and resilience that we haven't really seen from Rangers over the last decade or so, in a match that I don't think Celtic fans will remember too fondly. It's not like a 5-0 or something like that. Great game for the neutrals, of course, but it is a game that does bring out some cult heroes in it. In the video today, we'll break down the match, what we've seen, who those heroes were, where the changes were made, where the match was actually won, as well as all the other major talking points. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And the comment section, guys, get into it on this one because it will be absolutely fire. I went live last night to do a bit of a post-match, debriefing, decompression session or whatever. The live chat was on fire and that, and I had a great time. If you did miss it, I'll link it at the end of this video and you can go and check it out, of course. And that's something we might do a bit more regularly on the channel, because rather than, these videos, we normally get them out the next day after the match. But, when I'm sitting writing my notes and just going over stuff, maybe we'll go live more often. If you would like to see more live streams post-match in that kind of vein, again, if you missed it, feel free to check it out. Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section on the live stream if you do catch it as well. Boys and girls, hail, hail. And let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, there was no major surprises in the Celtic lineup. It might have even actually been leaked if you listen to some of the rumours that go around. It was the exact same team that we've seen play Tuesday night in Zagreb. And for the Rangers lineup, again, I don't think there was any surprises for this. There was some players that didn't play their Europa League game and, one or two other bits and pieces. So both teams came into this kind of really as expected for the most part. But really, after that, once we get the game actually kicked off, not much that was expected pre-match actually happened very early on. Celtic, as we always see, like to get on the ball and like to build the web of how we're going to play, how we're going to control the ball, and then dictate, what side of the pitch we're going to try and attack down. And Rangers were really, really prepared for that, with their back four, serial loser on the right here, Hefty, Proper, Balogun, Raskin and Diamande in the middle. They'd set themselves up to be really narrow and really compact with that kind of base in and behind them, but allowing the players in front of them to have a bit more of an ad hoc responsibility to counter-press, to read the game and try and snatch up any mistakes. And because they wanted these guys to have a little bit more freedom, the back six that we've got here weren't really that deep, especially in the opening stages of the game. They want to be a little bit higher, so there's no massive gaps in the midfield, so that the likes of Hatate, McGregor and Bernardo do struggle to get space to pick their head up and, find some passes. So we've seen very early in the game that the middle of the pitch was super, super crowded. It's where everyone was, and there wasn't really any room to breathe. There wasn't much opportunity to actually get on the ball and start to knit the play, to build the web that we like to do. Bring Taylor into inverted mid, have Daizen and Kuhn out wide, have Kyogo on the shoulder of the strikers, really giving them something to think about. And then from there, Johnson can provide width. Can we get Trusty and Vickers higher and higher up the pitch and push them further back and further back? That didn't really happen because of Drogba Long, or Igamani, whatever you want to call him. He was always close to a centre-back. We had this Bajrami guy who was always kind of in the hole, who had the real freedom to either support the striker, support the wide players on whatever side of the ball was going to be. And then we had the wide players as well. Czerny, who held his width all the way through the game and was their main artillery, their main outlet in this game. And then Hadji, who, again, he had a little bit of licence that if Bajrami was going to go and double up on this side of the pitch, if this is where the ball was, you'd see Hadji kind of coming in here. So it meant that Rangers had a real focus on the middle of the pitch, which is the most valuable part of the pitch, if you ask me. But this kind of high, I don't know if it's a high line, but this kind of mid-block situation that they've built where the whole middle of the pitch is really crowded and really difficult to get through. We were limited in the early stages of the game to trying to play some balls over the top into space, either for Kyogo for his shot in and around this area here, and even for the breakaway that we got for Reo Hatate's shot from the edge of the box, where Bernardo, who by the way I thought was absolutely fantastic in this game. The thing with Bernardo that always kind of holds me back on me believing like he's definitely going to be a guy that will become like an out and out first name on the team sheet type player is a little bit of his forward passing range. But in this game, it was absolutely fantastic. Maybe not necessarily playing blind, but knowing where the space was to hit with the bigger pitch and where Rangers' high line here. Bernardo from this type of situation here down in this area of the pitch sprays a fantastic ball over the top of the defence into this space here where Nicolas Kuhn can get onto it and create that kind of rammy inside the box here that eventually falls to Hatate towards the edge of the box that he scuffs, and the keeper gets it ultimately. And when you see that our main way of getting up the pitch is having to miss out midfield and try and get over the back of their defence, we're then just running up and down the pitch quite a lot and playing into the kind of chaos ball theory that certainly Rangers love to, live and die on over the last couple of years. But Bernardo was doing this very, very well, especially in the first half, where in these tight spaces, one of the biggest qualities that he brings is his composure in these kind of, I don't know if I want to say like emergency, but like high pressure situations where he's maybe got the ball off a Raskin or Diamande, something like that. There's a few players really close to him. He's not got time to play a little short pass and make something happen, but he knows there's space here to hit the ball. There's space up here for Kyogo to hit the pass. And, I thought he was exemplary today at really just not making any mistakes, taking the pressure off the defence and bodyguarding McGregor very well, because Bernardo was really narrow in this game. Normally when Bernardo does start over the last couple of games or over the last season and a bit or whatever, we do try and push him a bit higher up here to cause a bit of a problem in between like their defensive mids and the centre backs. But in this shift today, or yesterday or the weekend, whatever, depending on when you're watching this, it was much closer to McGregor, and it just gave us that little bit of solidarity in midfield. But then when we bring Taylor into inverted fullback and we're still trying to like knit the play and we're still trying to build out from the back and whatever, we came across this problem that we always come across in these types of games where the opposition aren't headless chickens and they don't just come out and try presses like mad and we just outnumber them at the back and move the ball around the corner, play into shadows and then hit some space. Because when we were knitting out, they were really happy to just, let's just drop back a little bit, let's just get a little deeper, let's just make sure, like Diamande was stuck to Reo Hatate like a rash for a lot of the big parts of this game. And McGregor, Bajrami was always quite close to him, don't get me wrong, but between Bajrami and Hadji, Diamande would jump sometimes, don't get me wrong. They were both just kind of creeping around this area here, just waiting for some sort of mistake to happen. And this type of situation here is where we kind of let them become dangerous, because we get into this little pattern of thinking, right, we're on the ball, we're progressing up the pitch in terms of like maybe Trusty carries it from here to here and then is going to try and start playing some passes or whatever. That should push them back a little bit more than, can we hit Daizen down the channel? Can we do this? Can we do that? But it was a false sense of security, and I think we really get caught, with not quite our pants down, as it were, but we really get caught in autopilot is probably the best way of putting it for their first goal. And really, a picture paints 1,000 words. Taylor in the inverted fullback position. Look at the gap between the centre backs. This isn't a team that's cautious of the danger, cautious of the counter press, the spring out that we see from Rangers here ultimately for the goal. And this is the position you can just tell from the way the first goal went, as well as a few other opportunities in this game for Rangers, that this is exactly what they'd been preparing for. This is exactly what they'd been training for. And it was, for me, a real departure from what we've seen from them over the last couple of seasons, where it wasn't about putting a man on McGregor and nullifying him. It was more, let them have the ball, and as soon as they get comfortable, be ready to spring into action. Now, I hope I don't come across as being petty here or trying to incite any kind of aggro and all the rest of it, right? But I watch a lot of world and European football, and I think it's quite well known that in Eastern Europe there is a lot of, conflict, let's say, between a lot of the nations, a lot of the fans, a lot of the national teams, a lot of the different clubs that come up against each other in the Europa League and the Champions League. And I'm pretty certain that people from that Eastern European bloc, Albania in particular, get into a lot of trouble for doing this whole thing that Bajrami's doing, the kind of two-headed eagle or whatever it is for Albania, right in front of the Celtic fans, no less, as well. And I think, like, again, without knowing all the details of the conflict, there is like a religious accent to a lot of that stuff over there. So I'm pretty sure if a Celtic player had done something like that, we would not stop hearing the end of it in terms of inciting violence and all this other stuff, bringing other stuff into football and all the rest of it. But when I seen him running and doing that celebration, I thought, wow, that is Probably something he's going to get in trouble for, and I've not heard a peep about it yet, so I thought I would just bring it up here. And I say I don't want to be seen as like stirring the pot or whatever, but no one else has mentioned it, and it's something that even when I was catching the highlights back in preparation for the game, I still seen it included in the highlight package, and I still seen I'm like, why is, am I missing something here? Or I'm quite certain people get in trouble for that. And after they scored the first goal, the rest of the first half became very, very tense and very, nip and tuck. We weren't up for taking too many like gaping chances anymore in terms of build-out play. There was a real urgency that came into the team all of a sudden where they didn't want to play across the face of goal across this area here. Although it must be said, before this goal, when Taylor is the one that plays it across the face of goal, if you can imagine where the posts are here, if you can imagine two lines coming out, that's what we mean when we say across the face of goal. It's kind of sacrilege. Fair enough, Taylor is very high, right? But defenders playing the ball across the face of goal is a big no-no. It's like a cardinal sin, It's very much a basic on defending, very much and with build out from the back and the way goalkeepers are used now, it's maybe now less of a faux pas is what it kind of used to be or what it should be. But when Taylor get caught for this one here, it was actually like the third or fourth one that we tried. Kasper Schmeichel earlier in this game was from this sort of position here, or it might have actually been this position, so I think he played it to Trusty. But Schmeichel was on the edge of his box, and we had like some Rangers players like not too far away from it. And Schmeichel played like a curved pass between a few of them across the face of goal to, I think it was Trusty. It might have been from this side over to Vickers or something, but Jesus, was my heart in my mouth. And I think Trusty had one similar as well, where again, playing across the face of goal, we've got really comfortable at it, and Rangers, like, to their credit, had picked up on that detail and said, we are going to snatch that. That is a huge opportunity that Celtic will give you. They will play the ball across the face of goal, and if you can get in their face, you can turn over the ball and then counter very quickly, because we will have Taylor out of position defensively, as it were, and Johnson will be preparing to be higher up the pitch. So with McGregor not being a defensive midfielder, Bernardo is certainly not going to catch Hadji, Bajrami, Cherny, Igamani for pace. So it was a good route to goal that they'd identified, and that's why I give them some credit in this match, because they problem solved in a very different way, in a way that Celtic kind of need to wake up and hopefully improve from off the back of it as well. But after the goal went in, it felt like all of that went out, and then it was like, if Trusty has the ball, can he now get the ball up on the left side and try and make some stuff happen on this end? Or if Vickers got the ball, could he do the same? Now, Trusty and Vickers have both got limitations when it comes to build out from the back. We speak a lot about it on this channel about Carter Vickers' his very one-dimensional passing ability, which is for the most part fine. We actually seen him take some really high positions on the pitch, actually carrying the ball really high, which was refreshing to see, and good to see as well that feedback from this channel is starting to get through to him. But Trusty, one of the qualities that Trusty does bring is the recovery pace, so if we do lose the ball in this situation here, he's very quick, very strong, very calm as well for the most part, and really does make good decisions 99% of the time. And Trusty, if we can knit the play, if we can build the team up where we're putting Rangers into defend, or any team, we're putting them into defend their own half, we're starting to build up the play, we're starting to control and dictate the tempo, where the ball is, what side of the pitch we're going to try and play down, then when we get into this position here, Trusty in this zone here is way better for me than Scales, because he's a bit calmer and his passing just seems to come off a little bit neater. Now, the problem seemed to be, and obviously you can see where this is going, of course, we get Trusty substituted off for Scales at half-time, but Trusty in this game, and in general compared to Scales, isn't as good at taking the ball from this position here and just travelling into some space and forcing someone else to break ranks and try and confront him. Trusty's just not. Maybe it was a wee bit of cup final, maybe it was a wee bit of derby kind of atmosphere, maybe shook him a little bit, because he's fine enough at it. I was quite surprised at how much we struggled to actually get out of defence, because Taylor, McGregor, Bernardo were all very much coming into the play here to take it from the centre backs. But again, when they're so disconnected from each other and they've got a player stuck to them from the Rangers team, we couldn't knit passes together, we couldn't get on the half turn, we couldn't start to face their own goal very easily in build-up play. And I think we could all feel at the game that a half-time sub was needed, but Brendan doesn't make that many half-time subs, as it were. But Brendan is honestly making such a huge a huge reputation for himself, a huge name for himself, I think, in his second time here at Celtic, for really controlling matches from the bench, for really deciding outcomes from the bench, whether that be the halftime team talk, the subs he makes throughout the game, the tweaks of the messages that he makes throughout the game. I don't think we've ever had a Celtic manager that is so proactive and so involved in the outcome of the match. I thought Adam Ida for Kyogo would have been the halftime sub. I know a lot of people wanted Taylor for Valley or Hatate for Engels, and I can get the logic behind all of that. I don't think anyone, actually somebody in the live chat last night said that they called Scales, and if they did, I tip my cap to you, because I didn't see it. Changing centre-backs, especially in a derby, especially in a cup final, again, it's a bit of a faux pas. You don't normally want to mess with the defence, but I think it was there for anyone who was ever like a Scales detractor or a Scales doubter to see like that contribution, that attribute that he brings to the defence. We know he's a man mountain, he's aerially, he's the most threatening defender we've got. From set pieces, getting into their box on the end of corners and stuff, we're starting to see him score goals. But even from open play, like, none of these guys are going to go shoulder to shoulder with Scales and get the ball off him. He is a colossus. Not quite Carter Vickers, but certainly getting into the same territory for me. But the one thing Scales has is bravery on the ball. Like, Scales will take the ball here and he will just jog with the ball, and he will get it to the halfway line if the space is there. And if space continues to open up for him, Scales will go all the way here. He will just continue to penetrate. He'll continue to move forward. And we've seen a great assist from Scales a week or so ago, where he scoops a lovely ball over the top, and it was brilliant. And he tries a few of that in this game here, and they didn't really come off. I think his long-range passing was definitely left a lot to be desired in this game, but he was the only defender that really had that about him, that has that about him, and it really did then open the game up for some different passes of play, for some different passages of play, I beg your pardon, to kind of open up, and for us then to allow Hatate to get on the ball in some different positions, to allow McGregor to maybe be a bit freer of whoever was around about him, because as Scales comes up here, it then makes it harder for these guys to hide behind McGregor. They then need to maybe get into this zone here, that maybe then opens up some space elsewhere for someone else. And Scales just taking those yards that he did made such a big difference to just them not being able to do this kind of counter press thing that worked very well for them in the first half. And then once Taylor gets that redemption locked in, he gets that equalising goal to kind of make up for the mistake of Rangers' opening goal. It did feel then that the balance of play, the balance of power was starting to shift in the game. And, you know, the second goal was absolutely sublime. Daizen Maeda, you know, he's hanging on the shoulder here in between a nice little gap between Balogun and serial loser here. And although McGregor like steps out into midfield here to try and like win a header, uncontested from Butland, the ball then takes a bounce and McGregor has to like hook it over his shoulder into space, and you can see here this big gap that we get between Tavernier and Balogun is exactly the sort of space that Daizen Maeda thrives in. He wants to play in that inside channel. He wants to be that inside forward that will get in between the fullback and the defender, get 1v1v the goalkeeper. Now, he has a lot of work to do. You know, he presses him, he makes a mistake, he then gets the flick on, but he doesn't give up and he runs all the way. And, you know, I was so happy when this hit the back of the net. Daizen Maeda has been fantastic in the Scottish League Cup, you know, getting a hat-trick in the semi-final. He loves to turn up in the big occasions. The bigger pitches do tend to suit him. But he is one of these players that isn't perfect. You know, I think on this channel, the thing that we're most kind of maligned about with Daizen Maeda is wing play, his actual distribution or whatever. But you can see here in this inside channel, as that inside forward, he is one of the best we've had. And then after that, they make a couple of changes, which I thought were quite interesting. They bring on Dujon Sterling for Balogun, who had picked up a yellow. And, you know, Balogun, I'm always so surprised that this guy has made a career at Rangers, because he's just, like, when he left Rangers, he couldn't even get a game in League One. I just find it absolutely mental. He's a big physical centre-back. You can see the qualities he brings to them, but I'm just always surprised to see him be such an important player for them. Sterling comes on, who I think some Rangers fans were maybe disappointed didn't start this game. And I thought actually when Ridvan came on for for Hefty, I thought, you know, that's actually something we need to worry about a little bit here, because this wee guy is rapid, and, you know, Kuhn was fine in this game, he went on to do better, of course, but at this point in the match had been doing fine, hadn't had that much opportunities, but you felt that this was like an attacking change for them, because this wee guy's quite quick, he's quite nippy, and if Hadji was kind of tucking in and helping out sometimes with this kind of counter press situation, it just would have gave them another bit of width to match what they had with Cherny. And I just thought this might have been another opening that could have been created for them. Sadly, that was closely followed up by a double sub for us, and I don't know if Brendan's hands were tied, but for me, this is the only mistake I think I've seen him make this season, or the only mistake that was in this match, and that was taking Bernardo off for Engels at the same time as taking off Johnson for Ralston. Because it felt like, to me, that was just too many changes on the one side of the pitch too quickly. But we're only winning 2-1 at this stage, and the game was still very much on a knife edge. Now, we were definitely in the ascendancy, we were definitely growing in confidence, we were definitely finding more routes to go. And now being 2-1 up, like, I get the logic of having a more forward-thinking player, because if they are going to try and now get back into the game, spaces could open up for us to hurt them, and we actually seen that's the way it did shake out. But I did feel that Bernardo's defensive kind of cover here for McGregor was vital to keeping the game tight and narrow, and us not being opened up as often as maybe we could have been. And I was worried that with Engels, because Engels is like, I've seen this on the live show last night, I still find it really hard to see who Engels is, what he is, what type of player he is, like what does he, what problem does he solve, what does he enhance about the team? It's, he's good, he's fine, I'm not saying he's bad or anything, but I do struggle to really say, oh, when Engels is in the team, we're better at this, or when Engels is in the team, he gives us this that we don't get from other players. It's still quite unforeseen, really, what does he give us? And I hope I've said that right so you understand me. And Ralston, when Ralston came on, he maybe had a touch or two, a cross or two that weren't absolutely on the money. But I did think he played a pretty good match, considering it was a final, considering it's a derby, and considering he's coming in getting thrown on at the deep end, where we've already made one change into the defence already, and we've made the midfield less defensive. We've made actually the midfield more attacking at this stage. And, that didn't really play any part in their equaliser or anything like that. Diamande gets away a really nice shot from this position here. Schmeichel makes like his third or fourth big save of the game, and then ultimately they score from a second ball from the corner, where Engels is actually the man kind of backpinned by Diamande, where he's able to spin and hit the shot before Kyogo gets that deflection on it. I don't think there's any culpability here for Engels, don't get me wrong, but I just thought that was an interesting coincidence, if nothing else, at that stage of the game, that was the sub that was made, and then ultimately that's kind of how the goal shook out. But it didn't take long for the Brendan Rodgers plan of attack from the bench to really pay off here. After it's made 2 each, we see Engels here get the ball in a tight situation. He knows where Ralston is, and as soon as he passes the ball, you can see here his body shape, he's moving forward. He wants to take one of these Rangers players with him into space to give Ralston a bit better of an opportunity. Now the ball has a lot of pace on it. It's actually heading towards the byline, or the touchline. And from here, one of the things you know about Ralston is he just does the right thing. Now, he might not always have the best execution, and I think this pass is actually aimed at Engels, but he knows, keep it in play, hit the channel, and with, who do we have here? Raskin, Hadji, and Bajrami, the wrong side of midfield at this point. If Ralston can get the ball into Engels or even further up, then we should be on. He knows that. He can see who's in front of him. There's a great bit of pace on the ball. The little left back, Ridvan, has to step out to try and block it. He fails, and then the tide just opens up for us. And remember where Engels has started this. He gallops all the way up to the pitch, and honestly, brilliant from Nicolas Kuhn here on a few different fronts. I've seen so many Celtic players in this situation. Do or die, tense, it's a level game. You've got to make the right decision. Shooting here, trying to play in Ida maybe when he's he's just came onto his heels, he wouldn't be able to get onto it, and he's offside, or trying to play it to Daizen Maeda, which would have to go through or over 2 or 3 Rangers players, maybe invites the goalkeeper to do something as well, but he finds the easy ball on the overlap. And here from Engels, honestly, like the thing about this is it's a great pass, it's great awareness, but this comes straight off the training ground of, we've spoke about it already this season, that the right hand side when Engels first came in, it looked like, between Engels, Johnson and Kuhn, that right hand side was getting really well oiled, and they were making some great triangles, and they were really able to open up a lot of teams here. And I don't think he is cutting that back because he knows the 6-yard box is so congested or anything like that. I think it's straight off the training ground. Him and Kuhn are breaking down the line, and he knows Kuhn's going to hang edge of the box, play penalty spot, and if he can hit that zone, Kuhn will be there. And then Kuhn, and again, we've said this a few times on the channel, especially over the last week or two, on his right foot, which is very, very underrated. People were talking about Kuhn when he hit that really great form as being like another Arjen Robben type, where he's like, oh, he's coming, or, it's like the Messi and the Robben thing. Like, what they're going to do, but can you stop him? He's always going to cut in on his left, but Kuhn's got a very good right foot. He doesn't always cut in on the left. He does go on the outside, and he can cross with his right foot. and he can finish with his right foot. But again, this wasn't just down to Ralston, Engels and Kuhn. The goal was very much down to them. But we continued to up the ante, we continued to up the pressure. When Adam Idah came on after they equalised, again, this is something that's starting to baffle me a bit about Kyogo, because Idah does a great job at dropping in, getting on the ball, and he doesn't even really necessarily need to use his height or his strength. It's not as if people are getting really tight to him and going shoulder to shoulder and making it really difficult for him to get on the ball. He's getting into pockets, he's playing a pass, and he's running a channel. Now, I know Kyogo does a lot of work. He does a lot of these kind of false runs, like decoy runs that will take somebody with him and maybe open up some space for Hatate or somebody else to maybe try and get on the ball and try and work. And then it's like, oh, Kyogo needs some service, he needs some service. And yeah, maybe he does need a little bit more service. But if he doesn't get service, I'm not saying he's throwing the towel in or he's given up or whatever, but he doesn't have another option to add into the match, and he was maybe a bit unlucky with when in the second half early on. Kuhn fires a ball into the front post for him. He could have scored here, and then our perception on Kyogo in this match is totally different, of course. But again, what Idah contributed in this game wasn't based on his height, wasn't based on his strength. It was based on his desire and his been able to read the job as an attacker, where if you do come into these spaces here, get on the ball, maybe try and play out, if this guy just moves 3 yards, he doesn't need to follow you. If he just moves 3 yards, that maybe just opens up a bit of space for the second ball, the third ball, to be a bit more productive and something to happen. Now, at 3-2, after Nicolas Kuhn takes that goal, I'm going to put my hand up and say it was all my fault, because I thought we'd won at that point. I was already engraving the trophy with Celtic's name on. I thought it was job done. 87, 88 minutes, whatever it was, 3-2, home and hosed, we're going to do it. And obviously, they then go up the pitch and equalise quite quickly. And there's a little bit getting made about it between Ralston and Vickers and who's the wrong side of who and who's man and all the rest of it. But it's a good ball from Tierney. If Kuhn played a ball like this in, I would have been very, very happy. It's a good ball. It is difficult to defend. We could have done better at defending it. There's no doubt about that. But good goals in football, you just have to accept them sometimes. If a team, their first goal is spawny, their second goal is spawny, but the third goal, hey, they've scored a good goal, man. Let's just accept it and get into extra time. And one of the comments that was really funny, also I've put Drogba long on this, right, because Balogun said Igamani reminds him of Drogba. Don't know why that is. Balogun didn't fucking play with the guy or anything like that, obviously just watched him on the TV like all of us. But one of the other comments that came out pre-match from them was that they already knew their penalty takers, and they were prepped and they were ready for penalties if it came to that. And in extra time, we brought Taylor off for Valley. And in the second half of extra time, we bring in Forrest. Now, I thought that these were especially Valley for Taylor, I thought this was quite an attacking change, because at 3 each going into extra time, Valley offers a lot more pace, a lot more vigour, and just really fresh legs, as well as I know he can be very effective in this inverted fullback job, which we've seen bits of, but he is a very good wide asset as well. He is a player that could hug the line, could give them a different problem to face, and Valley did okay for the most part. I don't think he was fantastic, didn't have much to influence on the game, as it were, but it really did feel the extra time was gone in a heartbeat, because they were playing for penalties, and you've seen all the interactions from Big Voldemort on the touchline when it was in extra time, when they were giving the ball away or they were trying to build up. He was just calm down, make no mistakes, there's only 4 minutes left, and da-da-da. They were really, really playing for penalties as soon as it got to extra time, it felt like. And really, that's the way extra time went. It was as if one team was playing for penalties and the other team, although Hatate seemed to get better and better as the game went on, as well as one or two others, we just didn't really have that final unlock, And I think this kind of highlights that although Forrest, we're all really happy when he does come on as the third winger in the squad behind Maeda and Kuhn, we don't have an option off the bench for Hatate, for Kuhn. Idah Kyogo we've spoke about already, I'm not going to go into that, but we don't have another magic man, we don't have another playmaker to come off the bench and give us a different style of play, a different route to go, even fresh legs in the same vein. So it feels like we're maybe, when we're tested to this degree, we are still lacking another quality attacking player. Maybe that's someone that could fill in for Hatate in this type of situation. Maybe that's Luke McCowan, who was cup-tied. There's a conversation to be had there, I think. But without a doubt, I think we all know that another quality winger is desperately needed in this game. And that's not to hang anything on Forrest. I thought he was fine in this game as well. Very good winger that he is. But then we get to penalties. And honestly, for McGregor, for Engels and for Hatate. I thought they were all missing. I don't know why. I just looked at them and I thought, oh no, he's not going to score. And it was the most nervous I think I've ever been for a penalty shootout in a cup final, because it was a game we really should have won. We took control of it enough times. We were the better team in enough spells as well. I know Rangers will come out of this thinking they should have got another goal, and they were okay as well. And they were okay. They did do okay. They did try us. But our goalkeeper was immense. Our manager was immense as well. Like, the different scales made coming in at half-time, it just totally undone their kind of ad hoc plan for this game, because all of a sudden now that kind of autopilot mode was gone, you know, because we weren't just trusty Vickers, move the ball between them, can you find Taylor, McGregor or Johnson? We had something a little bit different. And then throughout the game, all the subs made a significant difference to really the way we were going to try and attack and the problems that Rangers were going to give themselves from their style of play. You know, Rodgers was fantastic at reading what they were doing and counteracting it. Now, I think the Ralston sub, of course, was down to injury. It looks like Alistair Johnson has been playing hurt for the last couple of games, and he's been doing absolutely fantastic. Now, we're not getting another game for another week, so he'll be on ice, and I'm sure he'll be back to his best self in no time. Ralston's probably the only, maybe Valley as well was a wee bit enforced on Taylor for heavy legs or whatever. But Hatate for me was one of the real surprise packages, one of the real winners of this match, because after having such a nondescript rubbish first half where it felt like he was really in show-off mode in the first half, where he was like, I want to strut my stuff, I want to put my name on the final, I'm going to try cool wee flicks and nice wee back heels and balls over the top. But as the game went on, he just got down to business, got better and better in this game. And for a guy that for his first 2 seasons was always subbed off between the 60th and the 70th minute, he has been slowly but surely been like worked into being this 90-minute, this 120-minute player that we've got. And I think, you know, at half-time people were worried that Hatate wouldn't have another gear to find, he wouldn't get that second wind, but he did. And I think he proved a lot, he showed a lot to a lot of people of why he's in the team, of what he brings, and why Brendan kept him on. You know, because he still has more to give, and he could go up another gear, he could get that second wind, and I think Hatate definitely comes out of this game as a winner. I don't really think anyone comes out of the game as like a loser, or anyone like kind of held his back or whatever. But I think Hatate, I think Engels are big winners coming out of this game the way it panned out. And I think Scales has maybe got that underlying moment now where the Celtic support can really see that the number one thing we've always said on this channel about Liam Scales is, for anyone that doesn't like him or anyone that didn't think he was good enough to play for Celtic, the number one thing we've always maintained on this channel is, if you want someone that will definitely put Liam Scales out of the Celtic best 11 and firmly put him on the bench, he will be 12 or 15 million pound, because Scales has got a lot of fantastic qualities that getting someone better at them, as well as then not having his weaknesses, and maybe even his weaknesses are strengths, maybe similar to like a Trusty. That is a very expensive defender. Very, very expensive. So I think Scales' development over the last season and a bit, or 2 seasons, whatever it is, has been remarkable. I think a lot of his errors and a lot of his negatives out of his game have been trained out of him. He's developed so well. He's still not perfect. He still does have his flaws, of course. But I think this is a game quite similar to games that Daizen Maeda had last year, where it feels like the Celtic support like click and they get him all of a sudden. Now, that brings us on to Daizen Maeda, who definitely comes out of this game as the cult hero, as the match winner. And, like, I hope this just helps us kind of reinforce that we want Daizen in this channel here more often. Now, we do focus on the right-hand side and open play against... We'll probably see it against Dundee United next week, but against, you know, take your pick of club. We do try and focus on the right. We're always looking to get Kuhn on the ball. Also, I've got Forrest on the screen here. Johnson's been getting into the box and doing really well. And we want to do that because we want Daizen in here as second forward. But I think we need to find a bit of a solution to, whenever we do go down the left-hand side, that we're not relying on Daizen to be the winger, to be the wide man, because he's just not that great at it, you know. And when we've got Taylor in inverted fullback, he does like to come into these situations and cause some crazy overloads and some overlaps. And it feels like if we don't have Taylor or Valley doing that, Hatate can do that as well. We see him out in these pockets of the pitch as well, doing support. That can help as well. But it feels like Daizen, like, he still needs to, you know, if he's coming in here, this is when we normally are getting frustrated with him and we're pulling our hair out. So maybe a little bit more development for Daizen to be a bit more direct and just go straight into this zone here. Have a bit more support from some central players perhaps, and make some more of the difference, as it were. But scenes, absolute scenes for Daizen. Definitely the hero of the match for me, for everything he gave. The winning penalty, the 2-1 goal, you know, putting us in front in the game, and playing the full 120 minutes, barely breaking a sweat, and could have probably continued to play on from there. Kasper Schmeichel, a bit of an unsung hero in this game with the saves he made, and I think everyone's going to remember Carter Vickers against the Hordes of Mordor here when they broke 4-on-1 on us and the big man still would not let them pass. It was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, for me, Hatate definitely gets plaudits, Scales definitely gets plaudits, Daizen is the cult figure, this is the Daizen final, I think, and Schmeichel definitely comes out of this as a huge winner as well. I'm always excited when we do these videos, guys, to read the comments after it, because your contributions are always on fire. This was a big game. I've seen a lot of hot takes and a lot of quality opinions as well. Probably the last thing I'll mention before we do go is the Scales penalty thing. I've kind of said it enough times in social media, depending on where you catch me. You might have seen it already, but it's not a penalty for me, quite simply because VAR would have 1000% checked it. And again, a picture paints 1,000 words, but no ball, no foot on the line, no ball in the box or anything like that. This is where it starts with the shirt pull, very clearly outside the box. And then look, very clearly outside the box again as well. And then the foot comes onto the line now. It's not even on the line there. As he's pulling his shirt, as you can see, it's, yeah, there. No penalty. Very clear. You know VAR would have checked it. Any Rangers person that thinks VAR didn't check it is fucking losing their mind. Excuse my language. Get into the comment section, guys. Let me know your big takeaways, thoughts and feelings, all that good stuff. On screen there now is some other stuff that I've made, including the live stream from last night in case you want to catch it, that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Please support the channel. It means a lot to us here at the Celtic here. Hail, hail, and Mon the Hoops.